Yeah.
So you just get HR, who are resources? Yes.
For us.
Like bar. Like my family. Yeah. That's every time I see a dog, use them. Yeah.
No, not by the force, baby.
I was gonna ask.
I don't know. Or that's the power.
Yeah. It's actually lost in the box. It's like, oh, yeah. This is reader.
Boy, baby.
Yeah. First Yeah, like started in April.
Yeah.
Last year. I know. Yes. Yeah, that is. I've never seen this. They were so like. Then we're all fighting with drama. Yeah. Something was happening. Now I'm like, I was I was gonna get the process. That's what. Basically, that's just a. It's a lot of now, error process. Yeah, it's there. I. Yeah. First now, it's great.
Thanks, baby. Some water, baby. Watch the course and unplugs the towel. You have jiggles, you know. The big. We have a few, in sec. We have. 4.
So start. Yes. Oh, yeah.
There. Here's one for you. Thanks, Sam. You're welcome. I love you. What was my mind?
Oh, love. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you can sit over there. No, you can sit there with him. Huh? Who's sitting there? You. Yeah. Thanks. Did you get the water? He drank a little. Watch the cords there. Say that one? Yeah, 4. Yeah.
Are they able to take questions maybe or respond to this?
The surveys are in there for them to take the survey. That's what we've offered at each one. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you all for today. Is small but mighty intimate conversations, which is that some practice and honesty. I will introduce myself. I'll let other folks introduce themselves. I'll talk a little bit about information, and then we have 6 questions. Would like to that. So my name is George Dyson Cascade. Been on the commission for a long time now. Since 2022, I applied to be a couple of years to get on. I was very persistent. I'm west of the resident, down in the Parkway, right where we and I am also on the street search ad hoc. And I'm really excited about the concept of being a sheet for and being able to work that I go on for this way in the process of time. So thank you for the perfect advance, and I will all you take this himself.
Everyone, my name is Always mission, this mission. I think we were set missioners, so originally, and if you those things. And originally here, I'm relatively new to West Oakland, it's not here. This is available here, but you know, we're still our lives, so I'm sort of ad hoc. I got a mission that's 10 weeks, but I'm here to still use it. Well,
So before we get started, we've got some people online saying it's hard to hear, so I'm gonna give you a microphone.
Well, and these are, exactly. And then we have Mario over here in front of the city of Oakland, HR, VAs. Basically voluntary time. And taking notes of the and requirements. Actually.
And then Monica is going to have another online, since we need it now, she'll share it.
So before we get started, is everyone familiar with, and this is small for stuff to say, are you all familiar with the police commission and the work that we do? See how it's, is it beneficial to go over? And what's that? So our questions are going to be focused on priorities for the department and also for the police chief, and then qualities, attributes, leadership, skills, that you want to actually see achieved. So those are the things to start thinking about. Monica here is the PIO from OIG's office, Office of Inspector General, Public Information Officer, so use all the acronyms. And she's also graciously, dedicated all of our community workers and offices. So with that, my first question is, oh, and let me apologize in advance for this one. You can see it. I'll just let her through. What are the top 5 priorities for the overlay? This is part of things. It doesn't have to be by, whatever you think, right, I'm listening where you're on. You understand about
Having achieved. Having achieved that is good with numbers. For instance, all this overtime, it's a significant impact in the budget. You know, how do you address that? How do you generate being a good coach, being a generating good environment where good officers will stay and retain officers. The other ones are the bigger. Understanding the diversity of being intentional about dealing with the different diversity. For instance, Black folks used to get melted in with the minorities, but someone who understands and developing relationships. Continue moving forward with the ceasefire. It has reduced the homicides. And other communities, they're more interested in property. And we have to, the chief has to be able to deal with that, because if he owns ABC Corporation, they don't want to come into the city, and it's a lot of vandalism. So it's a person who have their feet to the ground, but is really strong on accountability.
Okay, that also probably it's 2 and 3. So is there anything specific for your police department or urge pertaining to chief that you'd like to see their priorities support?
The continuous ceasefire.
Continuing to fire.
And even within the workforce site.
Okay.
And to really put finances.
Testing, much better.
Any other priorities for the police department?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chiamaka. I'm a D3 resident. And I think, you know, in terms of what the department should be focusing on, there's so many, you know, you hear a lot of things when it comes to outcomes in community. We want to reduce violent crime, property crime, burglaries, et cetera, et cetera. And I think part of how I think about it is philosophically how the department should be approaching the work. You know, are you focused on root causes? Are you focused on preventing crime upstream? Are you focused on partnering with our other city departments to make sure that we're leveraging all the resources that the community has to bring to bear to address crime? And And also are you focused on being efficient with the resources that we have as a department as well? How do you, most efficiently leverage limited staff and limited smart staffing, et cetera. And I think, beyond that, there's a lot of operational challenges the department has that need to be a continued focus. We've seen all the different debates about how the department leverages overtime, attracts it, and manages it. And, questions like that, as well as, other sort of operational or internal challenges the department faces are really important to resolve, have an effective department. So just a couple of reflections.
I'll be a resident. I live in District 1, so like 10 minutes that way towards North Oakland, so not far from here. I'm Deborah. All of the things, check. And then as you were talking, I was thinking about the civilianization piece that I was coming to meetings at the beginning of the police commission and thinking about the police a lot, and really was very interested in seeing divisions within the department transitioned out and into civilian oriented departments where we don't need a gun, basically. And I know this is back to the public safety reimagining public safety task force and all that work that got done, and hundreds of recommendations that are still on the city website, and only a few of them ever got implemented. So I guess for both, I would love to see a chief come in who really understands how Oakland advocates and the activism and how we organize as a community, and really look at what was already provided with a lot of energy and people's time, hours and hours of meetings years ago, and even to take into account what other people already did and get educated about it and be willing to be open to hearing. Because, a new person's gonna come in with, I have a vision for Oakland. I'm like, wait a minute. That's great, but what are we gonna do about the historical, aspects of what was done and how people wanted to see major shifts, right? I also really, I'm a community engagement person, so I love sitting in meetings, but I really like engaging in dialogues and events and opportunities for relationship. And I think when we had our community resource officers doing that work and showing up at those neighborhood meetings and neighborhood events, that was huge. It really shifts the way people view the police. Especially, where we've had the issues and continue to have challenges with the NSA. So I would really love to see a chief come in who knows that piece, right? And knows what we have left that still needs to be accomplished. So we do, that somebody else mentioned, move out of the oversight. So I think that's it, because I think everybody else said a lot of things.
So not reinventing the wheel, like that's a big, what that hasn't come up before, and maybe worms. So, yeah, done a bunch of questions, so.
And it's readily accessible, it's
Right.
on the website, so, right, anybody can look at it. Were you there?
Great. Our next question, is around the top attributes or skills or characteristics of the next chief. So we've already mentioned something that's good with numbers, and manage the budget. That's really important. He has experience, managing department size of Oakland with the same budget. Somebody who's a good coach, and really good environmental retain officers. Anything else for, attributes or sense?
Anyone on attributes and skill sets?
I think one quick reflection on technology is, someone who, I guess, in, the place where this would shine is in the interview process, someone who shows, that they've paid attention to detail in terms of the history of OPP and all of the different events that have got us to this place, from the rioters to a lot of the different, the transition of chiefs throughout the year, someone who is a student of that history and understands the lessons that we learned from it and the challenges that we'll have to address as a result of that history. And then also someone who shows an appreciation of, Oakland's diversity and character. Being the police chief for Sheffield Village is different than being the police chief for West Level, rather, I should say. The skill sets are complementary, and you need to understand kind of the diversity of the neighborhoods and the people in Oakland and be responsive to those different needs. And so I think it's really important that shines through in how a potential candidate speaks about Oakland, speaks about the needs of different neighborhoods and communities, and records of how to put those in conversation with each other.
I have a question for you, actually. How would you suss out someone's like in-depth knowledge about the history of Berkeley? As opposed to just knowing, oh, like I know about the writers, or oh, I know about the NSA oversight, or some of the missteps in Berkeley has done in the past. Like, how would you, I guess, dig deeper to understand that this applicant knows more than just the first major Google search?
I think a question as simple as tell me about the public safety needs of Oakland's communities, right? If you can tell me about, about how your folks in Adams Point care more about, the car burglaries or the dirt bikes going down on Grand Avenue, that's the concern of the moment versus, folks deeper in East Oakland are concerned about gun violence. So thinking about how life, in commercial corridors impacts the safety of the local neighborhood. So I think someone who can answer a simple question, with the nuance and show that they understand different neighborhoods in Oakland and how those needs vary. Yeah.
You can follow me with the question. Okay, our next question is, what are the top 5 leadership qualities needed from the next police chief? Now, I know we've kind of touched on a bit of this. Good coach, good with numbers, help with retainment. Just trying to see if we can color in a little bit more details here. Again, the question is, what are the top leadership qualities needed from the next police chief?
I was just thinking when you said coach earlier, what that can mean a lot of different things, and who would they be a coach to? And just trying to think about, like, if you're the chief of this very large body, right, of employees in the city of Oakland, how do you show up as a leader? How do you make sure that the people you're leading know enough about you that they feel committed to follow you? So kind of like a really strong energy that comes with that person, but also someone who really understands how you support and develop the people that report directly to you. So how are they thinking about leadership development? Because one day maybe one of those folks will be the new chief. So are they thinking about, I forget the professional term for developing your people so that they get promoted and do more, take on more roles. So just kind of that, yeah, because I don't know how much time they'll really have to do actual coaching with their staff because they're going to be so busy leading the department. But I agree with you. I think that's a really important component.
What my meaning of coaching is, like an a football coach, you have someone who, just run with the iron fist. And so the players imitate that personality. When you have someone who is a teacher and he or she runs it with, it should be no question they are in charge. But that doesn't mean that you don't show compassion, that you are trying to instill a culture of a team. And it's not just me. The buck stops with me. But it's inclusive. That's, you're coaching your team. Because they're going to emulate this lead, where he or she is. And how they act, and be willing to learn. Do not, I have all the answers.
Right. Anything else for that question?
Just a couple that came to mind for me, creativity brings out. We know that Oakland and OPD don't have every resource under the sun, no amount of wishful thinking is gonna resolve on 800 officers tomorrow. And so what does it look like within Oakland's context and within the context of the resources in City Hall and in the department to find creative public safety solutions? I think especially in the face of, you're going to community and, you'll get requests for the simple answers, why can't there be more patrol? Why can't there be more of this? Why can't there be more of that? And so I think as chief, you have to, if you're responding to some questions with a no, you need to have a yes in some way, shape, or form with another idea. And I think a corollary to that is collaboration, to be able to bridge your partners, city council, the business community, CBOs, your random neighbor down the block and bridge all of those voices to find solutions that work to meet the needs of the most possible, most vulnerable. And I'll leave it with the third is, and this is connected as well, but there's real patience involved. I think, all of us have watched city council meetings, we've seen commission meetings, we've seen surrounding community meetings. And you have a lot of demanding supervisors and bosses as a police chief, and to be able to remain patient, even keeled and calm despite the circumstances.
Okay, I think that those are all really good points, especially when it pertains to the creativity side. What I really thought about was being scrappy, right? Like, we're trying to get more, but in the meantime, can you do more with less? Allocate the resources the best way to ensure the best impact.
Okay, so back to priorities. Top that could be short term, I think first of the days that could be long. Maybe there, right?
It's just these words jump in my brain. Listen to the people. Show up, ask the questions and listen, right? I'm trying to remember the past chiefs and, their different approaches in the beginning and how much was focused on, well, you hired me, what do you need, and be vulnerable and open because, it is not easy, right? Especially in that role to come in here when there are a lot of frustrations and challenges that have been hitting communities really hard. So there's already going to be a lot expected of them the minute they walk in the door. And I think they also need to be realistic about what does that look like, because they can't do it all. And it has to be somebody who gets that. Like, don't come in telling us how you're going to fix everything. Because who's going to believe that, right? It's not going to be real. So I think that takes some humility in some ways, but just an understanding and a sense about how to engage with a broad community, like some other people have mentioned, the diversity of Oakland, and we are not all in agreement in this city. So, what does that look like to be that representative for everybody?
Okay, be in the community and there's nothing to do about it. I said, okay, I like it, be in the community and be receptive to feedback, I like that.
Like you're doing. Like, these kind of opportunities are huge and
Anybody else? Top 5 priorities could be the first 100 days, like Commissioner Angela Castain mentioned. Or what have previous chiefs done, maybe here or other places, like what I want that replicated here in Oakland.
I really appreciate Deborah's point about just kind of beginning with the humility and listening, before imposing their own solutions. One angle that I think about here is the chief as an administrator, the department head. So fiscally and operationally, what do I need to know? What does it look like to get our house in order? And then with the OPD spin of, understanding the dynamics of the NSA, what'll, in the mind of, the monitor and all the powers that be, what will it actually take to get from point A to point B? So I think a really strong understanding of those dynamics, like administratively, and then also kind of that transition to potentially, complete solutions of like in those areas. And of course, they definitely,
Anything else? Right. Next question is, what are the top 5 qualifications, could be about their background, that next police chief would need?
One, he or she must be ready to take office and wear the uniform they want.
So in the last,
Maybe 2 community forums ago, that same comment came up, and I don't know. We were not sure explicitly if they take the training like before they actually get the job. So unless they're from California, they probably will still need to take that training, which would mean they can't wear it for first. And I don't know how frequent it is, but that's just something to be aware. So if they have to wear it day one, then they have to already be certified.
You know, I'm sure there's a lot of good officers, all across the country. But we need to have someone who is familiar with the Bay Area, California state. And as the lady stated, that they know, but I know Oakland. I don't think I know Oakland. And they don't have to come from Oakland, but they need to be ready to take office spiritually and physically where they need David.
So I have a follow-up question, maybe question here, to piggyback off yours. I know you mentioned that it's not, the chief doesn't have to be from Oakland, but as we're soliciting a nationwide search, how important is it to all of you that the next police chief is from the Bay Area, or from Oakland, or from California, as opposed to coming out of state?
California.
I think it's definitely a plus in my mind, but I feel and I'm confident that you could have an effective police chief recruited from elsewhere. Like I don't see it as a disqualifying. In my mind, what's more relevant is the track record and also the vision laid out for what public safety can look like in Oakland. And I know to get to the level of police chief, you need a decorated, sworn record. And I think it's important to have someone who's demonstrated that they, superstar of the show, someone that's demonstrated that they know how to partner with folks in the community, with different city departments to bring forth holistic solutions. I think they need to demonstrate that, that they've been effective beyond just leadership of sworn officers and just the tactics of enforcement and policing, but that they can go beyond that. And I think that should be, some on the bottom line.
Okay, any more for what top 5 qualifications / background to police chief?
I don't know, it's kind of funny in a way, but thinking about, do you want them to have experience with, oversight, like being in a city where they had to deal with similar situation, and were they successful? Like, did they know how to move out of being in oversight? That, for me, but it's not a have to, right? But if they really got that down, Yeah, and I'm mixed about them being from here too. It's like, yeah, I mean, you could come from anywhere, but I am kind of interested in seeing someone who comes from a sizable city. Right? That's, well, just happened, so.
Okay. We've gotten to our last question. It's kind of a catch up. So is there anything else you'd like to share that you feel is critical to this police chief search? Again, anything else you would like to share that you feel is critical to this police chief search? Kind of a catch up. So anything that the other question didn't really catch? Any comments?
Anything you want us to see sure perhaps.
Yeah.
I think it's really critical that, you know, candidates are able to demonstrate political aptitude as well. You know, you could have a sterling, you know, record, and of course you can have lots of qualifications, but if you're not able to navigate the mayor, the city council, 1,001 community stakeholders and partners, the commission, then you won't be successful, full stop. And so I think something to kind of get that experience and get that perspective would be really important.
An individual who has experience and comfortable with having oversight. Oakland wants to have oversight. There's some departments in large cities, they don't have the oversight. Civilian oversight. And I think that's paramount, is having an individual who is, Oakland don't have the time to be a school, you know, learning. You need to come in ready to do business. And someone who's accustomed to that, know the nuances of it, and willing to improve upon it.
Yeah, I know that. That is.
Why do you wanna come work in Oakland? Like, what drew you here? I don't know, for me, it's like a heart thing, like, or gut. What's bringing you physically and otherwise, you know, into this sphere? That would be interesting.
Yeah. What attracts you to everybody?
Is it something personal or, you know, whatever they can share, but.
And I also like that idea of like reframing what oversight looks like and what it actually means. And I think we have this connotation that it's a punishment for something. Whereas, you know, obviously the voters and the voting overwhelmingly approved some levels of civilian oversight multiple times. And so if you look at it more like a partnership and less as a punishment, I think, you know, it'd be great to have a leader that embraces oversight, understanding that it's, you know, it's a way to partner with the community, it's a way to build bridges with the community, it's a way to, you know, develop cohesive public safety strategies with the community. Like there's so many advantages to it. And maybe, yeah, we have some that looks at it in a different lens and help us as open using shape the way in which we view oversight. I think that would be great. Any other thoughts?
So any questions on?
Alright. Yes.
And maybe a last thought, I think, you know, it would be great to have a candidate that is actively kind of thinks about and censures the impact of our public safety approach beyond just the work of OPD. So thinking about, you know, the partnership of kind of recognizing the broader landscape of the legal system and what it looks like to, you know, to take a broad rehabilitative approach when it comes to, you know, public safety as opposed to just accountability as punishment. And so I think someone who can speak fluidly to that approach of knowing that ideally policing is a last resort and not a first resort, and wanted to make sure that we're not, with our approach on the ground in community, just filling the prisons. And, having that be the be all and all to accountability, public safety. So I need someone who recognizes where they're situated in the broader criminal justice system and wants to, kind of recognize that need for reform and that need for broader systemic change, and how the police department thinks.
We do, we have a ton of lines.
Babies.
Dogs and babies, breaking doll, baby.
Well, that's for everyone who's online, because they said they can only see the top of my head and Mario's head, so you can see. And right here, this is Kristen. Has an opinion too.
Yeah, well, thank you for your participation. It's really, your inputs beyond valuable and that help us as we go through this selection process. So
And how many more?
one more, the next one is April 2nd,
April 2nd.
in Chinatown.
Yes.
At
The Oakland Asian Cultural Center, Chinatown. Please.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. I mean, tell everyone, as many people as we can get to come and take advantage of this. I mean, you have opinions, use your voice. It's divine apparatus right there so that you can get your voice heard. And that's why we're doing it. So please share it with your networks as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone online.
Thank you.
That's good.
We got some good now.